So I had some iris that were white, and they just kept, you know how the white do. They just grow and grow, and then you have white iris. So Mother gave Carmen a bunch of them, and she put them out in the country along the side of the road down to the mailbox, and that was a nice way to use them. And I had them over there on Haggard Street, and I like the iris a whole lot, and that's where I started growing. But when we moved to Dallas, how did I find out? I've forgotten how I found out about Mr. Norton. But Mr. M.W. Norton was a Dallas man who worked over at the packing house in Fort Worth, and he had a commercial iris garden. And every year he would travel to the big learning to grow iris requires you to, if you want them to really do well, you have to really like them. And so you have to see them blooming and know that they're a beautiful, beautiful flower. And there are hundreds of different colors and divisions and kinds of iris flowers. And the ones that grow the easiest in Texas are the tall bearded, but they're also intermediate bearded and dwarf bearded, and there are tall iris that are different from the tall bearded. The iris flower is grown on a rhizome. A rhizome is similar to a potato. It is not a bulb. It has roots that go down into the ground, but the rhizome sits on top. And you have to recognize that when you plant it, because if you put the rhizome down under the ground, it will rot if it gets wet. So it's a perennial flower, and it comes back every year, and it also multiplies, and that means that you will have more iris than you planted eventually. It multiplies by having increase on the sides of the rhizome, and they're like a bulb, but it isn't a bulb. It's just a growth, a small growth, and it will come out of the rhizome just like the rhizome, and then it will put out its own leaves. And when it gets large enough, and you have to decide when it's large enough, it doesn't you just die. Cut it off. It lives on and on and on. It multiplies and produces children so that you can transplant it. You can also share it with your friends. And it's such a nice plant. It's so beautiful when it blooms. And some people don't like it when it doesn't bloom. But you can take care of that by manicuring your iris. That's beautiful color with you. has to be large enough to have babies on the side before you want to divide it. And it has to have good sized babies that will look like they're going to grow well. Now this is a picture right here of an iris that has grown out of the mother. Now here, this is the mother. Here's the child. Now this has got babies growing on the side. There are two right there. There's on the other side, there's one. There's a baby in the crib back here under the leaf. And when you dig them up, you're careful because you don't want to break those little babies off. They need to grow until they're big enough like this. And then when they get like that, then you cut them off and you have a whole new plant. And this one's got a nice baby on it. And so you still want to leave the baby till it grows because it's going to grow big like these others. Okay, I am going, this mother is not going to bloom again. You see its bloom stalk was right there. And it won't, but you don't break it off. You want to cut the new one off with your knife. And seeing there's a baby right there, you can cut this so that the baby will continue to live. And so you have to be careful not to cut the top of your counter. Now we'll try to not cut the top. There, came off nice and smooth. Now this you can throw away because it's not going to do anything else. And this is a preparation thing. Now you've got a new mama with a baby down here, two babies there, a baby gonna come right here. You can see it at the side and possibly another there, or that's a root. You never know what's gonna pop out of this guy. But we're gonna cut his leaves back because they don't like to stand up after it's been dug. So you have the middle is where the new leaf comes. That's what I told Phil today. The new leaf comes in the very middle. So here you have all these big nice leaves, but the new one's in the middle. And you cut these till the new one is going to grow big and the other ones are going to grow out. And you can plant them. You want them to look pretty. So when you cut them, you don't just chop them off, you make them look pretty. And you throw the leaves away, and that's all your good growth. But this is the way you want it to look when you get ready to plant it. Now, you've got a loose leaf over here, which is going to fall off eventually. You can cut your roots back just to some. You can cut some of them a lot. But you want to cut them so they're easy to handle, because it's going to put all new roots out when it gets in the ground. So I see these are about 4 inches long, something like that. And that makes it so that you can make your mound, and then you set this down on the mound like my finger, my fist, and you spread the leaves out, the roots out, and you pull your dirt up around the bottom of the rhizome. Rhizome is squishy, it's rotten, so you don't want it, because a rotten rhizome will just rot everything else that's connected to it. You want it to be nice and firm. And if this is firm, just like a potato, when you buy a potato, you wouldn't buy a potato at the market that was mushy, would you?
No.
1 to 9, water and Clorox. And
so it's not 9 parts water
and 1 part closer.
Bleach.
Bleach. Okay.
Just any bleach.
Yeah, any bleach. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I've worked on this before, this little deal, and I wanted to save it. Oh, I wanted to save it, and I see it's got rot on the bottom of it, and I'm so sorry. And in order to save it, I'm going to dip it in the bleach, and you can dip it down all the way And it doesn't even hurt if it gets on the whole plant. You can leave it in the bleach, and you can put it in there, and you can leave it for a while. It's not going to hurt it. In fact, if you get enough iris that you want to sell iris, you need to dip all of them in the bleach, whether they got rot or not, because that makes sure that they won't do that after they get in somebody's yard.
Or if you want to give them away.
Well, I'm not so
Would you
swift.
bleach them?
Yes, I probably would, because I don't want them to rot anywhere after they're in my yard. Well, I need my glasses. Anytime they have come from another plant, you want to cut off the bottoms so they look pretty like the big ones do. See, now this one has a broken middle leaf. And I think that I would probably trim it off. Rather than rip it, it'd be better to cut it like that. Now it's on the floor. Anyway, then I dip that in the bleach, just like that. And you can dip it this way, but remember it's bleach and it'll hurt your fingers if you do that, if you dip it. Oh goodness, I'm gonna need a broom.
When you fertilize again.
Again in the spring, like in January, February. That's for the bloom. And that's
Same thing, same type of fertilizer?
Same type of fertilizer, yes.
Okay. So you fertilize twice a year?
Yeah. And you tend to them. You clean the beds, and you trim the iris, and you plant in the summer. But you trim the beds and clean the beds in both the summer and the spring.
Okay. Plant it in a mound, okay,
Yeah.
but what's the best type of soil again?
Well, it should not be a highly acid. You shouldn't be an acid soil. It should be alkaline. So you shouldn't put a big lot of acid producing material in it.
How do you water them?
Well, you water them when you plant them. And then, hopefully, you'll have rain. If you don't have rain in Texas, and you test the soil, you don't want hard, dry soil, so then you'll water them again. And you'll just test the soil. You know, you keep it tested. You don't want them in soft, moist soil.
So it's important to let the soil dry out between watering.
Yes, that's a good thing to say. It is important to let the soil dry out, but not till it's so hard that there are cracks, because our soil will crack, you know. People get excited about that. My friend who called me the other day lives out in South Lake, and her husband likes the iris. And they started out with old iris that came from her grandmother's house down in Fredericksburg area. And she loved the iris. Well, they came and saw my iris, and he loved the iris. And so I gave him 2 or 3 iris. I love them, but number 1, they're beautiful. Number 2, because you can count on them. And I don't know, number 3, because they're different from anything else. And they actually aren't so different from lilies, but they are. Some of them have a wonderful fragrance, and that's interesting. You don't always know. Some of them have let's see, their leaves will be different color. they won't be just green. They'll have another color. I've forgotten what that's called.
Yeah.